Welcome to Truth Talks. I'm Judge Lauren Lake. You ever wonder what happens when the system fails, even just for a second? This week, a headline caught my eye. 4-side traffic light goes out and causes havoc. One intersection, no lights, and the whole city damn near lost its mind. Now imagine that. But everywhere, no power, no signal, no help. If one traffic light can shut down a street, what happens when the whole grid goes dark? Cyber attack, blackout, disaster, whatever the cause, Black communities will be hit the hardest. Why? Because we're always left out of the planning, the warning, and the recovery. Tonight, we're asking the urgent question. Are we prepared? Or are we the most at risk? This is about more than electricity. It's about power, who has it and who's left in the dark. Let's get into it.
Are y'all ready to roll? Let's go.
Thank you, Judge Lauren Lakes. This is Truth Talks, and we're going to deal with a very serious issue today because we got to know what happens if the grid goes down and what will Black people need to do and know in that crazy situation. And when we're dealing with that entirely different side of life, let's bring in the team you already met. Judge Lauren Lake, welcome. Happy to have you hanging out with us today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And of course, the lost lover boy, Dimitri Wiley.
It is a pleasure again, my brother.
And Dr. Cheyenne Bryant is here with us as always. How are you?
I'm good, Torrey. I could have got a better intro, but listen, I'll do it myself. What's up, Doc Squad? It's Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, because my brother Torrey wants to act like, he is out of the doghouse, but he's still in the doghouse. I'm out, though, and I have the key to his doghouse. Listen, y'all, we got topics today. We're going to cover some good stuff. I don't want to really hear anything Torrey has to say, but unfortunately, because he's my co-host, there's just some things I'm going to have to listen to and try my damnness to not agree with.
Okay. All right, let's do it again. And also, my co-host, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant.
There we go. Okay. He's halfway out the doghouse, y'all. Halfway. Only partial.
I appreciate it. Gotta get the tone right. Tonight, we got to show that you and your loved ones will want to watch till the end and share with other people. We're going to break down the racial gaps in emergency preparedness, why survival isn't just about supplies, and what Black families have to do to protect ourselves when the grid goes down and everything is black and no one is coming. Emergency service is not coming. You got to take care of yourselves. You got to protect you and your community. That's later. Right now, let's get into trending truths. Kanye crashed Diddy's trial with a dramatic courthouse appearance last week, causing a brief spectacle. He was in and out in 40 minutes, tried to get in the courtroom, could not get in the courtroom, and he left. Judge Lauren, is Ye putting on for the cameras, or is he really genuine in trying to help Diddy here?
This is very interesting because, previously he called Diddy an informant. It was like a beef. And then lately the tide has switched. He's definitely now on Diddy's side, but it was the timing of him showing up because there was so much speculation about testimony related to this freak off with a famous rapper and his wife. And everybody was speculating that it could be him and his wife. And then the very next day they pull up to court. It was like bizarre. And I mean, look, I definitely can't be in the courtroom every day, but I try to follow along. And even I was like, now what move was this? And the crazy thing was he caused such a spectacle. He only got in the overflow room. He didn't get in the courtroom. So he probably had to leave. It was probably a spectacle.
If you're a judge on that case, do you think that having a superstar like Kanye come into the courtroom is disruptive to the whole environment?
Well, of course it's disruptive, but I mean, if he wants to come in and be respectful and sit and watch, just like Diddy's children, I mean, everybody, the judge has control of the courtroom. So we ain't signing no autographs and doing no Instagrams while court's going on and all of that nonsense. But I do think it would have an interesting effect on the jury, depending on what they feel about Kanye. And so I think his support of Diddy, but I mean, especially after that testimony, because I was thinking to myself, now is he coming to support Diddy, or is this some little low-key way of saying, yeah, it's me? Like, I couldn't
Right,
figure
right.
out what
No, I got the same vibe that coming right after the testimony that seemed very much to be about him and his own relationship with sex workers. It definitely seemed to be like, oh, you talked about me? Well, here I am to make sure that you know that it's me. I think it's both sides of this question. Is it him trying to support Diddy, or is it him trying to come up in a PR way? Like, yes, he always wants to be in the light, to be seen. You mention him, he shall appear. He may appear on this show later today, because it's like, if you say my name, I am coming because I want to be part of whatever circus you got. Dimitri, what do you think?
Oh man, this is typical Ye for me. To come to the courtroom, whether y'all know it or not, whether you see the fit or not, dressed in all white like the, you know what I'm saying, second coming. This is basic Ye antics. Ye's been doing this for years. I'm actually sick of this shit. I'm gonna be honest with you. From the moment that you gotta imagine, this is the same man who jumped on stage to give his opinions on an award he had nothing to do with. My opinions matter this much. You say what, Tori?
You like his music?
Do I still like his music? I ain't like the song since like 2010, but that's just me. I think there's an ego inflation that Kanye walks around with, and it's clear and evident when you show up to a courtroom that has nothing to do with you. And don't get me wrong, I know his name may have been in it, but if you're not summoned, then they don't want to hear from you. There's a reason you didn't get in. See, I respect the loyalty. If this is some loyalty we talking about, I respect that. But as a friend, sometimes you got to know when it's best to speak loudly, and sometimes you got to know when it's best to sit down and shut the fuck up. But
What do you think?
That's just me.
I think I absolutely love what Dimitri said. If you ain't summons, find something else for your ass to do. Yay. This is typical narcissistic yay. It's like, if it's about me or if it ain't about me, I'm going to pop up and make it about me. And since I was told, not summons, I was told, y'all dropped the yay bomb in the courtroom, I'm going to show up with, I know y'all keep saying wife. I was under the impression that they were divorcing or separated.
No.
Lord have so they didn't reconcile?
No, fake news. They're good.
Oh, fake news. Okay, thanks. So, okay. So my point is that showed up with the wife to kind of put a stamp on, yeah, y'all said it would happen back in January with a big celebrity's wife who had a birthday in Vegas. We know Ye and Bianca's birthday is in January. Ye and Bianca were in Vegas in January. And we know, not fake news, they were having some pretty nice freak-offs, threesomes, foursomes, swing, or whatever you want to call it. And Torre, you might like this, my brother, and I'm going to wrap on this.
Oh, boy.
I got some of my information from going to your Instagram page and your TikTok, listening to you cover this story. Hold on. You ready for this? I'm about to drop a bomb. Hold on. I hate that I'm saying this. I'm going to whisper it because I hate saying good things loud to you. Great job, brother.
Thank you,
That's it. That's all you get. That's all you get.
Thank you, sister. No, I was on your Instagram and I saw you with your nephew at the graduation, and it was so beautiful. And the pride and the joy as an auntie in his big moment, I appreciated that. So, but I do think that Ye wants the light in any imaginable way, whether it's look at me, I'm anti-Semitic, or look at me, I'm hanging out with Diddy when he's going through his shit. Like, wherever there's light, I want to be there. So I'm a little thrown off, but like, yeah, they were, Lauren, it was really kind of heavy because it doesn't really have anything to do, maybe it does. I wonder, well, actually, let's ask the question. What does it have to do with Diddy's trial for somebody to say, I was with somebody else and Kanye having the same sort of wild sex party that we're talking about over here with Diddy?
Okay, wait, I want to understand your question. You mean, does it help Diddy's defense that he was with Kanye?
Yeah, because Kathy's saying we did freak offs.
Well,
Jane saying we did freak offs, but then Jane saying I witnessed Kanye and others as part of a freak off that Diddy wasn't even at.
Well, right. So that kind of says to the jury, right, that we're not the only ones doing this. He's not the only one doing this. This is commonplace. A matter of fact, these things go on even when Diddy isn't there. Now, she was, of course, walking the line. Like, that witness was a little bit off. Like I said, I'm a former criminal defense attorney, so I was really trying to figure out here, it was feeling like a defense witness, but they did get a lot out of her. I think just what was pronounced in her was the fact that, she definitely wanted him to be hers. Oh, this hair is doing what it want to do.
You should get some hair maniacs because it's exactly where you want it to be.
Yes.
Right, Doc?
You and Torre got the curls pop, but hair maniacs could definitely save the day. Let me tell you.
But I will say this. I do think there is something that speaks to her almost saying, this is a thing. This is what we do. This is not unheard of. However, that doesn't necessarily negate the fact that there may have been times when it was coerced, manipulated, when they don't want to do it. So that's where it gets kind of odd and people don't understand. It's similar to rape in the sense that, you may want to have sex 32 times, but if on the 33rd time you say, no, I don't want to do it, and people close you up in a room or threaten you bodily harm or something, that still is considered a rape. Going back to Ye, I do think, though, in terms of the jury, if I was the defense, I probably would have want him to get into the gallery and get to have a seat. I think unfortunately, I think star power, the support of the star power, lends itself to this thought that this was a wealthy, unhinged man that was on drugs, right? We equate Kanye with a certain level of mental illness. They're trying to kind of set Diddy up that he was on drugs and out, kind of not in his right mind. And it aligns it with this sense of like, I'm powerful. I got all the money in the world. I'm high. Girls want to get at us. They want to do anything to be with us. These are the kind of rooms we're in, and this is commonplace. I think there's a little bit to the defense that would have been interesting for him to sit in and for the jury to see him in support.
The other thing I think, Lauren, and I want to close out on this. If you have friends like Kanye, you don't need enemies. If you're Diddy in trouble, Kanye is the last person I want in the room. Just with the anti-Semitism, the anti-Blackness, like all this crap that he's been spitting for years now. I'm like,
But it doesn't matter to Ray because he has 9 lives. Like, look at this. He amazes me with the way he continues to enter the media space, and people still regard him as some iconic superstar. Despite everything he said, there's still this feeling of, and whether you like it or not, that's Kanye.
Yeah.
And they're interested in him and they want to know what he does. And there is a certain Star Trek. If we want to break it down real quick before we get off this topic, look at what women are doing, right? And look, I'm a former criminal defense attorney, so I see this. There's a part of this that, yes, was about potential rape, about coercion, about being forced to do things against their will, about being forced to take drugs. There's another part of this with the women that is, how much will I do to stay in the presence of a powerful, wealthy superstar and potentially get to be his woman?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think despite everything Kanye has done and said, people look at the courtroom, the whole news cycle turned to Kanye that day.
It sure did. And you imagine that if he gets into the courtroom, that potentially has an impact on the trial in some way, jurors distracted from testimony, what have you. You know, I don't want the jury to be distracted by celebrity, positively or negatively. Let's listen to the evidence. It doesn't matter if Kanye is supporting Diddy or not, right? Just listen to the evidence and let's go from there. Let's move on to politicking, because we have a really important and powerful story to talk about. The Supreme Court has ruled in favor of a family that was wrongfully raided by the FBI, opening the door for victims to sue the government. Now, before we celebrate, gotta be real. This is not just for everybody so far, right? There's 100 others who aren't getting an apology. But in 2017, this sister, Trina Martin, a Black woman in Atlanta, Georgia, had her home wrongly raided by the FBI while her 7-year-old son watched. The FBI went to the wrong house. There were no drugs there. There was no arrest made, just lots of property damage and lifelong trauma. And to make it worse, the family was notified that they could not sue law enforcement because law enforcement has qualified immunity. Let's take a look at a story about the raid so we can understand a little more deeply about what happened to this sister in Atlanta, Georgia.
Hundreds of these cases happen every year. The police showing up at the wrong address or receiving bad intelligence, storming in, damaging a house, traumatizing a family, and then having no responsibility for their actions. That's because the government enjoys broad immunity under federal law. You can't sue the government when they make a mistake. But what the Supreme Court did with this unanimous decision is they opened the door now, at least in this specific type of instance, when police are wrong, according to the Supreme Court, committing an assault, battery, false imprisonment, false arrest, or abuse of process, that families can get in the courthouse door to bring a damages claim for what they suffered and their property damage. And this family will do just that. The Supreme Court did not decide their claims today and said it's still possible they may not succeed in the end. But in this unanimous decision by Justice Neil Gorsuch, the case can go forward.
Mm-hmm.
So, Judge Lake, help me understand. Can we sue law enforcement when they make a mistake per the Supreme Court, or can we not?
There are exceptions. Normally, the government does have a level of sovereign immunity, right? Where you can't sue the government. However, there are exceptions. And it's called the Federal Tort Claims Act, FTCA. It allows individuals to sue the United States government for certain torts, certain wrongdoings that are committed by federal employees acting in the scope of their employment. And this ruling, I think, is a crack in the door in the right direction. It's not the promised land, but, and as you mentioned in your open, there are countless individuals that have suffered and have had no recourse. But it's a beginning, because when there is negligence, wrongdoing, false imprisonment, things of that nature, basically the Supreme Court has said unanimously that the door is not completely closed to recovery. And I think we got to take the inches where we get them.
Dimitri, it's really hard to imagine or to conceive of a world where the police can barge into your home if they have made a mistake, come into the wrong home. Hey, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm not doing anything. They don't have to say sorry. They don't have to repay you for the mistakes that they've made. They don't have to make you whole for wrongfully arresting you or wrongfully invading your home. The immunity seems like a huge problem that we need to get past. Like, how do we even deal with immunity being used as a shield for them?
You know, this actually shocks me that it actually landed in their favor, partially because, do you understand, Tori? Like, middle of West Side, black, like one of the worst neighborhoods in Chicago. You know how many motherfuckers I've seen ripped out of cars, houses I've seen raided, motherfuckers getting fucked up, kids screaming, like no explanation. Cops drive off, you'll never hear from them again. Just gone. It doesn't matter if it was wrong house, wrong person, they never gave a fuck. So this is actually quite shocking to me. It's funny because immunity is like their way of neglecting accountability. It's their way of saying, you don't matter enough for us to care about how we hurt you. And that's amazing to me. They're traumatizing Black people or people in general, and they just getting away with it. So this is actually super, super shocking for me, and I'm surprised to see it swing that way. But we got to understand, one rock to hit a giant wall that still exists is not going to tear it down. So there's a lot more work to be done.
Doc, your brother has immunity when he's doing things. If he should make a mistake, God forbid, then he is protected. I don't think that's right.
Well, I don't think it's right either. I think that if he makes a mistake and he was under the right intent, which is what qualified immunity says, the reason why it's so hard for folks to fight against qualified immunity, because you have to actually prove that the officer knew that they were breaking the law when they broke the law. How in the fuck do you prove that? Okay, that's very challenging. You got to have a hell of a counsel and a team to prove that. But I'm with you. If my brother does something that is intentionally a crime, especially if it has to do with murder, right? We're talking about breaking into someone's home. We're talking about George Floyd, Breonna Taylor's home. Then yeah, I think that my brother, if he does the crime, whether or not, he should do the time. However, I do think that there needs to be bylaws, or there needs to be specifications that go within the qualified immunity, within the sovereign, because I do believe that law enforcement deserves to be protected. They are risking their life every day. And maybe I have more compassion because my brother and my uncle, who's a retired sheriff, my brother being a 14-year law enforcement. But I also do 100% believe that us as citizens also need to be protected when law enforcement takes law into their own hands and does something that is out of enforcing the law. They are there to enforce us, not to brutalize us, or to beat us, or to break the laws on their own. So I think there needs to be accountability on both sides. I think with this issue, I don't think that these folks are going to be able to sue. You're talking about in Georgia. Georgia's one of those states where everything gets. Georgia doesn't even provide evidence to private.
This would be a federal suit, though.
It should be. Absolutely. It should be. But they're protected at the federal and the state level, as Judge Lauren just said. A qualified immunity is federal and state, but then sovereign is totally state. So there's a gridlock there. And then in the police bylaws, it also protects them not only with qualified immunity, but their bylaws as law enforcement also has a secondary layer of protection for them. So technically they can do whatever they need to do, and they're not held liable. And I'll land on this. Even if they are held liable in the sense that they get fired from that police jurisdiction, guess what? All they have to do is go get hired in a whole other jurisdiction. So where's the protection at? It doesn't matter if you put in a complaint or there's a lawsuit. They can just go get hired somewhere else. They still get their retirement. They're still able to have employment and do the same damn act to a different community that looks just like us.
You're absolutely right that officers are able to move around from station, from precinct to precinct, despite their record. The immunity, to me, feels very frightening and over empowering for them when they are quite often the most violent members of our community. As I move around Brooklyn and New York City, I am far more afraid of the NYPD than whatever criminals still exist in this city. And our crime rate and the LA crime rate and most big cities crime rates is way down versus 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. So we are in safer big cities, and I am feeling for myself, for my children, that I am more worried about the police. And when they come with immunity for their actions, I am even more afraid of them. Absolutely. That is the element that we need to have safer communities, the police to be held accountable for what they do.
And what you're describing is community policing. We don't have community policing anymore. We just have police officers that come in, they enforce the law, and they also take advantage of their authority. Community policing means we know our officers who are policing our communities. We know them by name. We can say hello to them. We're not just only engaging with them when we're calling 911. What happens to being at the stoplight and saying, hey, to the officer that you always see police your community? What happens to being at the park and seeing police presence and the kids know that's Officer Williams or Officer Brooke?
Yeah, I don't even understand where this mindset of Officer Williams. No, never. Don't speak to the police. Do not talk to them. Do not say hello to them. They are not here for you to protect you. They are here, especially if you're a Black or brown person, they are here to arrest you. They have to make a certain number of arrests per shift, or they're not doing their job. It's not about safety. It's about creating money for the department and for the state. So don't speak to them. If I tell my kids, if they are on the sidewalk with you, cross the street. Because I don't want to be anywhere near the police. I don't want to be talking to them. I don't want to be saying hi to them. I don't want to know them. You're not part of our community. You made a decision to be blue. You are against us. So you stay over there and we'll be over here.
And that's how most people feel. That's a reality. And it's because of the way it has functioned over time. And of course, the inception with the police starting because of, people slave catchers trying to catch the enslaved. I mean, that's the historical context, and it hasn't changed much. But to Dr. Bryant's point, if we do want change, that's what's going to happen. There's going to have to be goodwill from that side poured into the community. But it doesn't help when you see ICE running around with looking like they cowboys
Military.
and like we used to play when we were kids with the thing up here and looking crazy. And I'll say this as well, as a mother of a Black son, it is problematic to me that if he was in trouble, I would think twice, right? To say to him, go find a police officer, because I'm more worried about how a police officer would interpret his running, would interpret his trauma, would interpret, right, even his speech, whatever it was. I'm more nervous about that. And last thing I'll say is we have more traction talking about parents being held responsible for the actions of their kids than we do about the police being held and being able to be accountable for their misconduct. There's more traction on that than we get on dealing with this qualified immunity issue.
Let's move on to our main topic, because I love the conversation we just had, but the main topic, what happens? What do we do if the lights go out for good? What would you do if the grid went down and all of America was left in the dark? It could happen. No lights, no power, no internet, just fear. From rolling blackouts to cyber attacks, our communities, especially Black and underserved ones, could be hit the hardest if any of this happens. What does survival look like when the lights go out, when systems fail and the government isn't there to help us? We are going to break down the racial gaps in emergency preparedness, the hidden costs of being left behind, and what Black families can do to stay ready. So what do you do if the grid goes down and all of America is left in the dark? No lights, no internet, no power, and no government coming to help us get out of this. That is a situation that could absolutely happen. And especially in Black and underserved communities, it could be a catastrophe. Dimitri, let's talk about what you would do and what you want to see others do in the Black community in a survival moment like that, when there's no power, there's no government, and we're sort of like in a new world order for a moment.
I think what people gotta be, first, before you do anything, you have to be very present of reality. And in reality, every crisis you've ever seen in our country is a mirror, right? And every time you look in that mirror, it's always the same thing. It's stranded people, forgotten people, disposable people. It's our people. It's simply that. And so the thing about it is, knowing you're going to be on that end of the stick means you must create a plan. Like, we always laugh at the doomsday, preparers and those who have a plan, but maybe it's time we all generate a plan. Maybe it's time we have those weapons in our home we need to protect ourselves. Maybe it's time we have that emergency food stash put to the side. I'm be honest with you, man. I'm treating this shit like Bird Box. I'm treating this shit like my life is on the line, because at every point in time, it all becomes your enemy. You ever seen The Purge? Like, when shit get crazy. And I'm treating it like everything I have is about protecting me, this 5-year-old little boy, and every family member surrounded it.
Judge, this isn't fear mongering. This is real talk. This could happen. We see these natural disasters. We know the grid could go down. Like, this really could happen. Actually, I want to look at the video of the Northeast power outage of 2003. Can we see that video?
There's limited communications here in the tri-state area.
If New York City is not completely paralyzed tonight, the going couldn't be much slower. With no power at rush hour and the police stretched thin enough at points that pedestrians are directing traffic, it's massive gridlock.
Cell phone's not working, telephone's not working. It's like you're in the wilderness, and this is New York City.
At this point, it's suspected a power plant problem in Buffalo shut down power in the New York City metropolitan area and up the eastern seaboard into Canada, as far west as Detroit.
You can see the gridlock on all the downtown streets here.
This is what Cleveland looked like, where power was out as far as Akron, hospitals on backup generators, and the train to the suburbs were down. Underground in New York City, in the subways, alarms sounded and people were pulled to safety.
The lights started blinking, the train stopped. Then all of a sudden, all the lights went on. They told us it was the AC failure. Then they told us it was the DC failure. And then they told us it was a citywide failure. People started to panic, we couldn't breathe.
With the 7 million people who use the subways in New York needing to find another way home, the streets and sidewalks quickly jammed with people walking across bridges and out of Manhattan in a state of confusion.
Just kind of like all these other people, just looking around, don't know what's going on, don't know what happened.
Judge, all those scenes look really scary and really possible in our future. So when the grid goes down and we get into those sort of situations, who's most vulnerable as far as, is it Black elders? Is it single moms, the disabled? Who?
I would say the elders and the disabled. I really would. And I think it deals with mobility. It deals with the fact that many of our elders are in senior homes where they need medications, they need medical treatment. But if I'm being very frank, Black people know how to survive. We just ain't really ready for this. We're not ready for it because our daily lives of surviving each and every day, right, takes up the bulk of our attention and intentions, right? Just literally getting food to feed our families, getting back and forth to work. And I think when there are disasters like this, we aren't ready. I had to stop myself. Right. And my late father used to be big on provisions. That was his thing. If it was going to be a hard rain, my daddy's old school, born in the 1930s, he's ready. Baby, you got some provisions. And we used to laugh at him. But now I know, now that he's gone, when they start talking about this, I got it all. I got solar powered charging. I got the solar lights. I got gas max, all of it. I got the big water cans. I have month to month ordered myself another layer. People laugh when they come in my garage like, are you crazy? No, I'm not. I'm ready. And y'all gonna be coming to my house.
We're going to her house.
Okay, come to my house and getting all the things that people laugh at me, how I got the old school can openers and stuff here. I got an electric one, honey, but I still got that one with the clink. Yep. And you gonna roll that thing and you're gonna get you some food. And so I think we have to begin to think about those things. And while we are into daily survival, we have to think about the big picture and we have to be ready because we saw, look at Hurricane Katrina. We saw our people literally, floating through waters on tops of roofs, but it's because we don't have resources. And if we do have resources, we don't know where they are and what they are. And we need to educate ourselves.
Doc, I want to call up one more piece of video that about the Snowmageddon in Atlanta, just to point out the notion that a lot of Black people are not ready the way that Judge Lake says she's ready. I know I'm not ready. If it happened tomorrow or tonight, I'm not ready. I know some Black people are ready. Let's see the Snowmageddon video. Talk about what we ought to be prepared for.
Stranded thousands, bumper to bumper, hour after hour, on roads so slippery, cars and trucks could not get traction. Some people spent the night in supermarkets, and kids slept overnight on the floors of their schools.
Oh my God. State Road 400 north of Atlanta looked and sounded like this last night. By dawn, nothing had changed. Traffic was frozen on all three of Atlanta's major highways.
Doc, that sort of Snowmageddon could have a catastrophic impact on a lot of Black families.
Yeah, and we're talking about Snowmageddon, right, in 2013. We're talking about what happens when the grid goes down. First of all, you have families in the inner city that are in crisis and the grid is going down every fucking day without any of the videos and pictures that are great to show when it comes to crisis. But we have these folks in the inner city that are underserved. Hold on. They call 911. The police takes hours to get there. They are already under-resourced and underserved. I went from the hood, I always say, to the hills. I'm in the hills where we have the sheriff department. And guess what? We pay for the sheriff's department. So when we call them, they're here in 10 minutes. And it's less of us. Our crime rate is low. Our school system is the best. But when I was in the inner city and called 911 to the LAPD, that was paid by the city and not by the homeowners, okay? It took hours for them to get there. We would call 911 over and over again. At that point, our crisis had turned into something that was almost undoable. So when we're talking about, are we ready? Are we prepared? And are Black folks, prepared for this when the grid goes down? I think every day we have grids that are going down in certain places, and we are still underserved and underprivileged. That is a problem. To Judge Lake's point, I too have water and a generator and food and all these things in my garage. I do, and we also have a basement. come on, baby, come on down. We also have a basement, and we have a family meeting where my brother, my mother, my cousin, everybody in the house knows there's a code word that we text, or there's a code word that we say. And if we say that one word, we know where to meet, we know where to go, and we know where all of the pistols are in this house.
What's
and so
the word?
we gotta be prepared for that. But what kills me
What's
is
the word?
I can't tell you the word, because if you come in his house, hooray, it's gonna be your butt.
You will get shot.
You will get shot. But I want to land on this. What breaks my heart and makes me upset is we talk about these big crises, right? Like COVID-19 was a crisis that happened globally. We talk about a crisis that happens like the Snowmageddon, the Hurricane Katrina. But those are momentarily crises. We forget to talk about and address the crises that happen again every single day in the inner city, where people are underserved and underprivileged, and they don't get access to paramedics. They're not getting access to the police coming and showing up, and they are having to take matters in their own hands every single day. There's a crisis in one of our Black and brown communities, and it may look like a Hurricane Katrina is bigger to us because we're looking at it on TV, but for them, that is their Hurricane Katrina. For them, that is their Snowmageddon. So we have to do better on a daily level and not just look at it like when the grid goes down, what do? The grid is going down right now while we're filming this in somebody's neighborhood, on somebody's block, and in somebody's community. We got to address that issue.
Dimitri.
You know, looking at this whole Snowmageddon thing, it's funny to me because, you know, I'm from Chicago. We receive snow all the time. This was like 2 inches of snow in Atlanta, like 2 inches. And imagine 2 inches in your whole fucking city collapse. Like, imagine sending your son to school and he never come home because he's sleeping on the cafeteria floor with no food, no blanket, no nothing. Like, this is crazy. But to me, it's not just about snow. This is the government not moving quick enough. Like, this has more to do with the structure of what we should have been prepared for that we were not. And you see how everything around it collapsed. Like, it's crazy. Motherfuckers were stuck on the highway for 24 hours. People were sleeping in their cars, but you ain't have no roads that was pre-salted. You ain't have no there was no preparation on the government, and I think that's the bigger problem.
I want to look at this Snowmageddon video and just point out just how hard some of these moments can be for people, for Black people in specific. Let's look at that video real quick.
Flurries began before noon yesterday. Ice soon followed. Schools, businesses, and government offices closed early and at nearly the same time. In less than an hour, traffic went from 20 miles an hour to a standstill. Salt and sand trucks could not get through to treat the roads. In Fulton County, 99 school buses filled with kids were still on the road at midnight. At least 2,000 other students spent the night at school.
Dimitri, that is so sad that all those people had to go through that incredible disruption. I'm pleased that some of the institutions, like the schools, were able to stay open and provide a place for children to sleep, you know, long after school hours. And I imagine there's some other ways that the community was able to come together, because I think that we expect the purge to happen in these sort of situations. And I think inherently deep down, most people are good. And most people would say, we need to create a community. And somebody like Lauren would have all the stuff and would say, I will share my water with the other people around me, right? I will share my knowledge and my flashlight and my power and my space, because they would understand we got to come together. You can't be selfish in these situations. Now, I imagine some people will be selfish. But Dimitri, I think most people will want to come together to help their neighbors.
You know, that's most people. I think what's to you have to consider in this point, if it wasn't a day thing, if this was a week thing, a month thing, something they never found an answer for, this shit turns into the Hunger Games, Torrey. I don't know if you ever been, you know, starving with nothing in your stomach, but all morals go out the window. That's where crime gets high. And people lose sense of like helping the next because they're only concerned about themselves. So I think that plan or lack of a plan by the government not knowing when to evacuate schools or how to evacuate schools or how to get people off the highway. If this was something that lasted longer, which we're talking on a global scale, and it's actually having like a blackout or something like that, this could be crazy.
Lauren, you know, a lot of people in your community and other communities have guns. And in a situation like that, we might start to see some Hunger Games type activity. We might start to see some purge type stuff. You might start to see people fighting in grocery stores over basic things and using their guns or their force. You might start to see that. How do you prevent lawlessness when you have a situation like that and people are fighting for resources and they're hungry and
I mean, at that point, you don't. Lawlessness is exactly what you said. It is going to be nearly impossible to continue to, apply the rule of law when people's survival is at stake. It's hard. I mean, look, I always think about The Walking Dead. Remember that show, how everybody started acting? I mean, that is pretty much what life would be like in the sense that people are going, and look, think about, when you think about a lot of laws are based upon what the reasonable person in that circumstance would feel or interpret a threat of force or a threat of harm to be. Well, when you're in a blackout and the grid goes out and you ain't ate in 5 days and your baby's starving or your mother or grandmother is sick, now are you a reasonable person?
Right.
Now, what are we talking about? A reasonable person in a desperate situation. Like it really is impossible to think about. And I think this too, as you were overthinking, I was saying to myself, I think a lot of us aren't prepared because it's what we don't want to think about, right? We don't want to think about it happening, so we don't get prepared. It's just like death, right? Many of us don't have wills and we don't have estate planning and we don't have that planned out because we hate to think about dying. And I think that's one of the things we have to do better about educating our community about. It's not about whether you want it to happen or not. It's the fact that if it does, when it does in terms of death, that you're ready in some way. Or to Dr. Bryant's point, you at least have community structure, right? A community there understanding, where do I go for this? Okay, how do I go for this? And then our churches also have to show up because I remember, was it Texas? When was it the tornado, hurricane, and the and then one of them churches, honey, one of them mega churches.
I'll call it. No, we gonna call it Joe Osteen. We gonna call it Joe Osteen.
I couldn't remember. I'm glad you remembered, but I knew it happened because I remembered the doors was locked, honey, to the church.
I mean, what supposed to do?
Who would have thunk it?
Ain't the church supposed to be there for the people in crisis? Go ahead, Doc.
In the Lord's house, I was going to say, like I've said many times on True Talks, is, the best and quickest way to inflate and increase crime is to deprive people of their resources. I say that all the time. You want people to be upset. You want them to be angry. Do what you do to us every day. Put us in communities where we have no damn resources, where all we have is liquor stores. We're limited to the things that can give us a great quality of life, which a great quality of life is a human right, in my opinion. Take, for example, COVID-19, when we're talking about the purge. COVID-19 was the closest thing to a purge that we had. Everything shut down. And this is what happened in COVID-19. Testing centers were only available in the upper class white communities. You know how I know? That's nationwide. Because myself and Mayor Robles, which was the mayor of Carson at that time, we built the very first testing center in the city of Carson at the Carson Convention Center in a Black and brown community, the very first COVID-19 testing center in the nation. And people were going crazy. We were on every news station talking about it. Masks were not available to the Black and brown inner city communities. When they became available, it's because organizations, NAACP, Black Lives Matter, local organizations, started to get donations and started to get these masks and bring them into the inner city. Okay. The only thing they wanted to give to us first was the COVID-19 shots. Why? That's a whole nother episode to talk about that. But my point is, when we had the purge, COVID-19, why do we have no access? Why do we have no resources? How come we didn't even have testing centers to see, do we have it? How do we have to quarantine? It was only in the wealthy white freaking neighborhoods until myself and the mayor put the very first one. And then, which we have to do, take leadership. Every other community started to replicate our blueprint, which I'm glad they did. But there was no fucking testing center for us in our inner city and in our community.
I appreciate your leadership in that situation. And you need folks who are going to be able to say, I'm going to do something bigger than for myself. I'm going to do something for my community. Sometimes we don't have that. I want to run another video that shows people dealing with a crazy situation and how when there wasn't leadership, things went a little left. Let's roll the video.
Debris fills part of the street after a car slams into the side of an SUV. The crash happened in the middle of the intersection at Highway 67 and Poway Road. The traffic lights had no power. Moments after the crash, Good Samaritans run through the busy traffic to assist and call 911.
A lot of these people have been coming to this intersection for 30 plus years, and however long there's been lights here, they have an expectation that when they get here, it's going to be smooth, flow traffic. So when the lights go out, yeah, I think it's a hazard.
Emergency crews were on the scene in less than 10 minutes. Early Thursday morning, traffic backed up for about half a mile. Many drivers confused on their turn to go. Deputy Nicholas McGregor was out directing traffic just as the morning rush started to pick up.
In the morning when it's super dark out here and people are just waking up.
About 2 miles south, signs posted alerting drivers of the outage. This is a look at Scripps Poway Parkway and Highway 67 after the power was shut off at the intersection Wednesday night.
There was a collision there due to confusion with the lights being out.
A car slammed into the back of a truck before bursting into flames. No one was hurt, but hours later, traffic continues to back up following the crash. The sheriff's department says there's only about 2 hours of battery life on the red flashers after the power goes out. They try to put as much signage out for drivers, but drivers should continue to remain cautious.
Dimitri, that's an example of what happens when some of the basic things that we expect in society disappear. And you see there are a lot of people struggling to adjust, but you also saw people stepping up and saying, I will direct traffic. I'm a regular citizen. The cops are not here. I will provide order. And I think when people are shocked, they're going to respond in a bunch of different ways. But as soon as the people realize, oh, this is our normal now, that they will start to come together and leaders will start to emerge and say, here's the things I believe deep down. And I keep coming back to this, that our better angels will come out in a crazy situation like that. And most people will not behave in horrible ways. Some people will, but most people will. I think if you took us and just dropped us in a whole new situation, we would create a civilization. We would not just kill each other till there's one person left. What do you think?
Well, to a degree, I'll agree with you, but I believe it's changes per location. I believe it changes per what part of the nation you're looking at. Us in the hood, nah. Ain't no leaders coming to the rise. I don't see it happening.
You would be the leader.
Listen,
you would be like, hey guys,
I
we need to do this.
I love my hood, but this little baby I gotta protect is far more important than me navigating traffic. I gotta make sure this little kid that's just me personally. But the thing about it is, I think we're looking at something so minuscule compared to something so massive. That's a traffic light going out. And you see how people react then. What happens when 911 does not answer the phone? What happens if there's no one to contact when life is in danger? That's a bigger problem. And yes, eventually we can cultivate something where leaders step to the forefront. But in times like that, it may be dire need to where you may never get a leader because everything was burned down already.
Lauren, we have government quite often unable to respond effectively in these situations with the speed, local and state and federal, with the speed that the community needs before it sort of starts to fall apart. We have hospitals will get overwhelmed, first responders will be overwhelmed. I mean, like in a major catastrophe like this, like we're talking about, something happens in Puerto Rico and we have this asshole go down there and it's so disrespectful. This whole photograph triggers me because he's so disrespectful to these people. But in situations where Black and brown people are put in trouble and the government is not coming for them, you're already halfway there. What do Black people need to have prepared in case something like this happens? Something like what happened to these folks in Puerto Rico, or what happened with any of these situations where normal life is no longer possible?
We need to have information and we need to have installations, right? Information, meaning we need to have a way that we are informed. Do you even know where you'd go if this happened? All the lights went off in the house. You want to get information. Where's church? Where are you going to go to a certain leader's house? As Demetri said, who going to be the leader? I don't know. We already don't trust the government as it is. Now, when this happens, are we trusting anybody? Who are we going to trust? And more importantly, how are we getting information? Ain't gonna be no social media. It's not who printing the paper when how does this happen? I don't think we can really wrap our minds around it. So I say information and installation. Information means get informed now about what will you be lacking. I think COVID did teach us some things, but I think in many ways we've been so busy about trying to get back to the business as usual. We've forgotten some of the lessons that we learned there when there really was just nothing to do, but we still had electricity. So right. And then when I say installations, I mean, install some plans. You know, you might need some real maps. I go back to my daddy again. He used to always go to AAA and get him a map. And we'd be like,
Thomas doesn't know what that is.
Just put it on the GPS. No, I got to get me a map. And he taught my son to read a map. And I think now, boy, these things are valuable. That you have to be able to do those basics. He used to have a saying, minimize the maximum and maximize the minimum. Meaning, I think as a culture, we often maximize really what we should minimize, which is where we going, what we got on, who's hot, who's not, who's that. We need to minimize the talk about all that. Considering what we're facing, we need to maximize the basics and get back to learning about that.
Doc, you and your family are super prepared. I'm super inspired by that and curious about that. Obviously, you would tell folks, you got to have water, you got to have some food, you got to have a gun to protect yourself. You got to have like a backup power source. What are some of the other things that you think are essential for Black people to have if one of these situations breaks out?
Yeah, absolutely. I also think that Black people need to have a plan of action. When this happens, where are we as a family meeting? If you are a part of a church and you are a member and you tithe, you are tithing to a church that should be a resource for you. So if you are a family who's in an apartment or a home that maybe the crisis has hit that home, does the church that you are a member to, do they say, look, if crisis happens, our doors are open, even if the pastor ain't here, somebody can get here? Because this is where local organizations and churches come together, which church is a 501c3. They are an organization to be preventative, not interventive. Because see, by the time we're trying to intervene, it's too fucking late most of the time. I know, as being a therapist for so many years and now a psychology expert still in private practice, when folks come to me because they're trying to intervene, it's usually too late. But certain things need to be a lifestyle, a plan of action when crisis happens. How do we prevent this? Who's our go-to church? What organization says they have a location? What organization has resources? Where's your local food bank? Where's your local hospital? What hospital is the one that's county, that's maybe always too crowded? We may have to drive a little further, but this hospital usually has folks that are available. How do we do this? Who is your local phone numbers? Who do you call if emergency goes off? Are we meeting on the corner, on the block, or in the neighborhood, or on the front? Also, last, which we don't do anymore, do you know your neighbors? Why are we not having community with our neighbors? When I first moved to my house 4 or 5 years ago, they thought I was crazy, and I don't care because I'm in a very predominantly white neighborhood, very Republican. I went door to door, Torre, Demetri, and Lauren. I went door to door. Hi, I'm Dr. Cheyenne Bryan. I'm your neighbor. They were like, hi. I said, how long have you been living here? One said 30 years, which made me feel happy. One said 25. What do you do? She's like, I'm a school psychologist. Oh my God, I'm in the field of psychology too. They thought I was crazy. One lady just spoke to me through her Ring camera. I don't care. I want to know who the hell I'm living next to. Who are you? And I even told my neighbors, if anything happens, I'm your neighbor. I'm right there. And so my neighbor will come over. Nothing happened. Her crisis was she wants to pick my fruit trees, but I still was neighbors. I said, girl, go ahead and pick the fruit trees. No problem. She was trying to be nosy, white people, but I'm back. But what I'm saying is I let her on the property to pick my damn fruit trees. But you're nosy. But I want to say I have a church next to me as well. And they're Jehovah's Witness, different denomination than me. But guess what? I talked to the pastor. I talked to the church folks. I told them, I'm next door if you need me. If we need you, can we come next door? Why are we not neighboring and loving thy neighbor and communing with our people so we know exactly where folks are, where we can go, and offering our refuge, our home as a refuge, and our resources to our neighbors as well? That's what community is.
I appreciate that. I love that. That is what community is.
Yeah.
Dimitri, what other ideas, what other advice do you have for Black folks who are listening to this, who are saying, well, what do I need to have? Because they may run into a situation where, the local Walmart is not able to serve them, or the local Piggly Wiggly is not able to take care of them because, the grid has gone down or what have you.
Piggly Wiggly is crazy. That's first off. But like to Dr. Brian's point, build a network, a survival network, not just your following, because you ain't gonna have Wi-Fi to get on the internet. Build up with your phone book. You got to learn to memorize some numbers. I still know my grandma's house phone number since from when I was in kindergarten, same house phone. Build up your network. The phone may not even work. You know what I'm saying? It all depends on the crisis we living in. But stock up on everything you can, from rice to beans, canned goods to water, flashlight, batteries, every single thing you can get your hands on that your grandma and granddaddy used to use back in the day is very valuable right now. A map, I'm talking about everything. Learn how to patch wounds. Learn how to cook from out of gas. Like, learn how to purify water. It's things you have to do, because this ain't just YouTube. You're not going to be able to look up how to do it on YouTube when the time comes. You're going to need to know right then and there. And like I spoke about earlier, I got that little 5-year-old boy I want to protect. That comes first. I will secure my family, then I will secure my block. After you've made sure your family was safe, look outward. Help other people. Help those people in your neighborhoods. There's people who are already homeless. So imagine how further this sets them back when you have nothing to give to the people you've been helping every day. And the last thing I could tell you is stay calm. Do not turn into savages, because that will only further the problem. Stay calm. Protect yourself. For Father's Day, I just took my father to the gun range the other day. Sharpen up your skills. Protect your family. Protect yourself, because you never know what can happen.
No, that's a really beautiful point. And, I don't know what I would say to this good brother. If I was talking to him, he probably could tell me some things, but I just want him or me or us, if we get in these situations, these almost apocalyptic situations, the mindset has to be right, that we are in a community. We have to be there for everyone in our community. We have to be willing and able to deal with deprivation. And I understand these folks probably don't have that much, but when the hurricane comes and wrecks their community, they have even less. And we have to be able to deal with the idea of like, okay, things are going to super suck for a while, but we're going to pull through this. There will be another side. There will be light at the end of this tunnel. I will take care of my children, my elders, my wife, my husband, whoever, and get everybody through this. Because if we deal with our emotions, we can deal with the deprivation longer. We can deal with harder things if we're not emotionally eating ourselves up. So I just hope that we can make a promise that, God forbid, we get into a situation like this. Yeah. We would tell ourselves, I'm going to be good to my neighbors. I'm going to make community with my neighbors. I'm going to share with my neighbors, and they will share with me. And together, as a community, we will get out of this. But I pray that none of you have to use this advice, but I think it is excellent advice to have, because there's a chance that we 100%. Could end up in this situation.
Yeah, and lastly, really quick, the moral support that comes with having community, with having family, with having somebody you can call. I think that we don't put enough value on that. Of course, external resources are needed, but me being able to call my sis Lauren and have a conversation about a crisis, that moral support gets people a lot further than we tend to let be had. Knowing that my neighbor got my back, I know Maria's name, I know I can knock on this door, I can do this. They know me. There's familiarity. There's comfort there. That plays a big role in how you survive your crisis. It really does. People alone will wither, even with resources. Imagine how they will wither without the resources and the moral support of their people and community and family.
I think that's really well said. And I also think that for your homework tonight, I want you to go over to Maria and knock on her door and tell her, please watch Truth Talks every night at 8 p.m. EST and 8 p.m. PST. That's our show. Thank you so much for a great conversation. Like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel at Truth Talks-Live. Continue to watch us simulcasting right here on the Black Star Network. And coming on after Roland Martin Unfiltered every night. Support Black media. Cash App at Truth Talks Live, or any of the links on the screen. I want to thank our supporters, Juanita Motti, Kyla Carr, and Benjamin Gomes, for their weekly support for the show. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Kyla, Ben, and Juanita. If you want to be in our credits, if you want to support us and be part of our Truth Talks family, please show us some love via Cash App. You can also support us by advertising with Truth Talks, like our friends at the Playpad in Atlanta, Georgia, the dopest community, cultural place where kids can play, a fantastic space for parents and kids to have a moment to like play and enjoy and get the willies out. When you're not at Piggly Wiggly, go to the Playpad.
Yeah, and guess what, Corey? They can use our Cash App to send our reparations. We all right with that. We are all right with that.
You can also support small business influencers. Partner with us by visiting truthtalkslive.com, like Hair Maniacs, who partnering with Dr. Bryant on their product, letting you know it's not just a hairline, it's a lifestyle. Let us know. Let us see that beautiful hair, Doc.
Honey, I've been showing it for the past couple weeks. We've been this stuff is like, hold on. And it has body. Stop playing with me. You see this?
No, really nice.
Okay, I'm gonna flip it one last time. You get one last flip, Hooray. That's it. That's all you get.
Do it, girl. Do it. Oh, I thought you were gonna flip it. Go get into the other.
Flip on.
Yeah. No, it looks really nice. It looks really nice. Become a VIP member of the Truth Lounge. Click on any co-host room, especially Dimitri's, because that's the most fun one. Tell them about it, D.
Listen, man, everything happens in this room. I don't want to say too much because the people over in Torrey room really don't like us like that.
Everything,
we're a little too hip. Hey, I might not have a shirt on in the room. You see what you see.
I'm coming. Hold on. Can I subscribe today? Wait, hold on.
Hey,
get here. Get off this. I'm on my way.
Get here.
Come to my room. I will always be clothed and fully buttoned, and that's how we do it over there. Black media is under attack from people like Dimitri, so please support our show. Tell a friend to watch Truth Talks. We are on every night at 8 p.m. EST and 8 p.m. PST. Next week, Ebony K. Williams will be here. And we will be here every night at 8 p.m. We'll see you